Hey, what's up, guys, and welcome to Talk with Tubbs, a petrolhead's perspective. As always, I'm your host, Tapelo, aka Tubbs, and I'm going to talk you through this podcast that deals with everything motoring. We're going to talk what's new on the market, what's old on the market, what's good on the market, and also what's bad on the market. Then we're also going to delve into some motorsport, but more focused on my favorite form of motorsport, Formula One. We're going to talk driver lineups, what we feel, react, but most of all, I'm trying to give you a petrol head's perspective. Words that come from someone who's as passionate about the industry as anyone I know. So as ever, let me not waste your time. Here we go. Talk with Tubbs is a go. So, I'm back with another episode, and before you kill me, look, I'm not going to waste your time. Last week's episode was super long because I had a lot of things to talk about. Formula One needed a bigger episode. So this week, it's really going to be short. I just need to talk about two things because they were the most interesting things to come out recently. And one of them, not fairly recently, but it's something I've always ignored talking about for a bit, but I'll get onto that. So the big news is official confirmation of what the underpinnings and what the powertrain for the next C63 is going to be. I think the model code is going to be W206 if we follow the current nomenclature. Right. So, look, there's no getting around it. The biggest issue with the car, keyword there, is that it's going to lose the 4-liter twin-turbo V8, and they're going to make do with a 4-cylinder 2-liter turbocharged hybrid powertrain. Now, the power is going to be there, right? The power is going to be there because the quoted figures as it stands right now is that standard, the car is going to run 400 kilowatts, which is 536 horsepower, which is an improvement of about 20 to 30 horsepower over the W205 with the 2-liter, with the 4-liter twin-turbo V8. So that's significant power gains, right? It's proper power. But in an overboost function, because of the hybrid technology and everything that's been put into the car, it will be able to sustain 460 kilowatts, which is 643 horsepower for about 10 seconds. Now, obviously they're going to market it with the whole 460 kilowatt power, and whatever the capabilities of that powertrain is, this is a significant step up in power from the W205 to the W206. I mean, we're talking 510 versus 640, and that's really significant. And it's not something we see often in the car industry. Whenever there's a new model that replaces an old car, you tend to see power gains of about 10 to around 20, 30 horsepower more. So it's never that significant a jump to already go and jump 100 horsepower, 100 and something, so that's significant for what this car is aimed to do. And I think part of that, look, it's already been said on social media. I mean, we've already speculated about it enough, but the reason for that is the hybrid powertrain is going to add a lot of power, is going to add a lot of weight. And to counteract the weight, they need to get in a lot of power from that system. So that's one of the reasons. Another reason is you're losing the V8 engine. And this is going to a marketing perspective. You're losing the V8 engine, which has become synonymous with AMG, but it's also a big selling point that you've got a V8. So if you're losing that, what are you giving back to the customer? What are you giving the industry? And a good thing to sell yourself upon is, we're giving you so much power. We're giving you significant power gains. We're giving you this, we're giving you that. And that's the main reason that I feel this new power gain is there. Two reasons. You need to give the industry something impressive. And I think I've watched a few videos now, read a few things about it. And I'll say this, right? This is a technological and engineering tour de force. The technology that goes into that new powertrain, my goodness. From that perspective alone, I'm super interested in what this car is going to be. I'm super interested on how it's going to drive. Yes, it's going to be 200 or so kilograms heavier than the W205, and that's a big deficit. But the power, the technology that they're inputting into the system, man, it's going to be something else. One of the key figures is that when the A45S came out, they said it was the most powerful four-cylinder engine at 421 horsepower. Honestly, I still, it still boggles my mind how AMG were able to get that power from a four-cylinder. Yes, we're not talking aftermarket, we're talking stock with guarantees and warranties and all that. And now, because of the introduction of an e-turbo, which is a turbocharger with an electric motor, meaning that you don't necessarily need the exhaust gases to start spooling up your turbo. You can use the electric generator, the electric motor for that, which means that you get instant power, instant response. And as explained by the AMG guys, that electric power is just going to help boost. It's going to get the turbine moving in the turbocharger until the exhaust gases come in, then it shuts off, and then it runs more like a conventional turbocharger. But because of that new turbo, the four-cylinder, which is the same as the one in the A45S, now produces 444 horsepower, making it now the most powerful four-cylinder engine. But again, the hybrid stuff. So look, motorsport is important to the industry. If you don't watch motorsport, that's fine, but you cannot denounce or you cannot undervalue its importance to the industry as a whole. The technology that goes into those cars, to varying degrees and varying timelines, eventually trickles down to the road cars we have today. Hybrid powertrains, dual clutch gearboxes, certain suspension elements, the use of carbon fiber, the use of magnesium, the use of lightweight materials, the use of suspension geometry, all that type of stuff initially starts in motorsport because that's a test bed for systems, that's a test bed for innovation, and that eventually comes down to the road cars because then they find ways to make it cheaper, they find ways to make it more suitable for a road going and everyday application. And this car is really making use of Formula One technology, and this is a big thing for Mercedes because I feel like as such a dominant force in Formula One, as such a trustworthy manufacturer, shall I say, because we always say Mercedes is at the top of their game. To have that kind of technology trickle down to the road car that you and I are going to buy, for an enthusiast perspective, it's great. You're driving Formula One technology. But from an innovation and performance perspective, it's game changing as well, because now no longer do you have to stick to the old stuff to make power. You don't have to. Look, it's going to be so, the technology in that. But again, never has a time where I've said to people, listen, you better get the warranty on that car because with that many elements and that much stuff, things are bound to go wrong. And I feel like if they do go wrong, they are going to go wrong with a massive, massive repair bill. So warranties are going to be expensive. But I am excited about that car just for the engineering, if that's the only thing. The engineering and the technology that's going to be in that car is going to be something else. It's going to be great. I am, however, sad that you're going to lose the sound, the emotion of it all. You know, I said on my social media that I don't care about the power wars because seemingly everyone, the current trend is who can make the most powerful car, who can make the fastest 0 to 100, 0 to 200, all that type of stuff. I'm not really interested in the power wars. I really do stand by this. I'd be so happy in a 400 horsepower car that had a good, if not decent sound. Straight sixes sound good, V6s sound good, V8 sound better, you know. I'd be happy with that level of power and good sound and just good feeling around the car. And that's it. They're losing that. And that's my biggest negative of this move to the hybrid powertrain, of this move to the 2-liter 4-cylinder engine, is that loss of sound from what we knew as the AMG V8 and, dare I say, the V6. I've already spoken about how good these V6s can be, and we know how good AMG can be at making a V6. We saw that in the C43, you know. So yeah, that's the biggest drawback. But again, I'm judging a car without having seen it in its final, guys, without having seen any review. But this is what it's going to be, you know. And as good as it's going to be, I know it's going to, again, they're adding the 4MATIC Plus system, so you can decouple the front drivetrain, have it rear-wheel drive. for that stuff alone, it's good. There are some stuff that they are keeping true to the car, but overall, I think the W205 will still tug at the heartstrings more, simply because we are emotional creatures. The sound perspective is more, that kind of stuff means more to us. But from a technology and engineering perspective, my goodness, it's going to be something great. But we'll just have to wait and see when the car comes out. But yeah, man, the W206 might just be what, look, it might just be the best representation of what the future will be. I've maintained enough that I don't think electrification and full EVs are the future. I think they're a stopgap to something. I think hybrids are the best alternative we have now. Small capacity engines with electric motors making decent power. You don't have to go to 700 horsepower. You don't. But I think that is the best compromise we have going forward. So I'm interested, but I'm also apprehensive of what we're losing. So yeah, I'm going to sit back and just watch what's next for the C63. So yeah, C63 out of the way. And now I'm gonna talk about a type of vehicle and a segment that I haven't really spoken about on the podcast before, but it is a segment that I've got my eyes on because I have a guilty pleasure car within that segment, and that is the Bakkie segment. In South Africa, it is a huge moneymaker for companies. It is a huge segment for consumers. And I think right now it's, as it always has been, it's really competitive. It's a really competitive segment. And yes, as much as there are two cars that are synonymous with the segment, you know, the Toyota Hilux and the Ford Ranger, I think there are decent alternatives right now in the market. And the problem now becomes, where do you spend your money? Which company's car seems to tick most of the boxes? And I think this conversation is kind of spawned by the new GWM P series. Now, if you've seen reviews of the P series and you've seen social media reaction, you'll know how much of a bargain it is and what it does right and what it does wrong. But I'm just gonna have, I've been thinking about this, and I've been thinking whether that P series is worth it. Is it a worthy alternative to the Ranger, to the Hilux, and other cars in the segment? And I think you first need to understand what the segment is being used for now. In in the segment of Bakkies, right? What we're seeing is a shift away from the traditional workhorse that Bakkies used to be. We're seeing companies targeting more of a lifestyle perspective on these cars. They're targeting more of an adventurous spirit. And that is why the double cabs are outselling the single cab cars, because of people ditching your traditional sedans and saying, I'd rather have this because it does X, Y, and Z, you know? So I think that's important for us to understand what the cars are being marketed as now. And I think with that comes the need to develop certain aspects of the car even better. We're seeing infotainments, technologies, all those kind of creature comforts moving from the more traditional hatchbacks and sedans into uh, these double cab Bakkies. And the reason for that is people are using them daily now. They're no longer just to carry around grass and all that type of stuff. They're now used to move around the family, go on holiday, do this, do that. You know, like I said, the lifestyle perspective of it all now. So yes, the downside of that is it's pushed prices up massively. These cars are massively expensive at the moment. You know, they're ranging from, depending on the model and specification you want, but if you really want such cars with all these creature comforts, you're already looking at 800, 750, up until a million in certain cases, you know? And I think that's, like I said, that's the downside of having this move towards the lifestyle orientated car, but it's what they need to do because it's what consumers are looking for right now. But now the biggest question comes in with the GWM-P series. I haven't seen the car in the flesh, but from what I've seen about the car and the interior, it's got the best interior in the segment. And I think from that interior, look, that interior could look good in a sedan or a hatchback. It's so premium looking. There's leather everywhere. The technology is great. Everything about the interior of that car is excellent. And then to top it off, you've got the pricing. Full spec, that car goes for 545,000 Rand. Now, that's a huge saving over the competition, Rangers, Hiluxes, Amaroks that are selling for 900, 800 and something thousand Rand. You're talking about a 300,000 Rand discrepancy between these cars. So now the question begs to differ. Where do you put your money? Are you putting your money in the trusted, decades old recipe of what works and what we've seen to work? Or are you going to trust a newcomer into the market? And I think the biggest problem here is that element of what we know. We know the longevity of something like a Toyota Hilux. We know the durability of something like a Ranger. Those cars have been on the market for a while. They've been tested. They've been crashed. They've needed to be repaired. So we know certain elements about that car. And I think the biggest problem is because the P series, as appetizing as a package it is, it's new. It's new, and you don't know what the ownership experience is like 3 years, 4 years, 5 years down the line. You don't know what the after sales treatment of that car is like, because I think, as is the case with a lot of cars at the moment, cars will generally do the same thing, albeit slightly differently, but they'll do the same thing over and over again. The differentiation, or the niche, shall I say, for the manufacturer is finding something that you're good at better than your competition, whether that be after sales treatment, whether that be affordability of parts, whether that be what the car is like out of warranty, whether that be the actual warranty itself that you offer to customers. That's the kind of stuff that I feel a lot of companies are marketing themselves on. So with the P series, I think the biggest drawback is it's new. We don't know what that long-term ownership is like. But again, it's hard to ignore a car that comes in 300,000 Rand cheaper, but with the same, if not better, features and technology. I think that's a lot to be said. And I think one thing that counts in the advantage of such a car is that a lot of these cars are no longer used for off-roading and type. They're really used more like everyday cars. So they spend a majority of their life on the road in the city, or you know what I mean. So I watched the cars.co.za review of these cars. It came out a few weeks ago. I had to repeat it again today just so I could record this podcast. And one thing I saw is that mechanically or structurally, it's not there with the others. They tested it against Ford Ranger XL Sport model, and the XL just looked more solid. The way the load bay shaked on the GWM-P series was a concerning thing for me. Albeit, yes, it was off-road, but that level of shake against something that looked sturdy already tells you there's a vast difference in the structural rigidity and the structural security of the car. However, like I said, because these cars are no longer used for that type of environment, they spend a lot of their time on the road. That kind of structure doesn't phase a lot of people anymore, because we're seeing that with cars that we don't really class as too safe or too sturdy. Your Renault Quids, your Datsun Go's, your Suzuki Espressos. But because they're spending so much of their life in the city, it no longer is that big of a deficit, right? And look, the winner for that P series is the interior. That thing is way up market than what it needs to be, and that price point. That price point makes it so aggressive. I will not be surprised if I start going around and I'm seeing a lot of them. It wouldn't surprise me at all. And I have to say this, the X Class from Mercedes when it came out, it was too expensive, yes. And I felt at the time it was too premium for the target audience it was looking at. But buyer preferences have shifted. People are looking into something different now. And I have to kind of sit back and think, is the X Class, was it just ahead of its time? Yes, it was based on a cheaper car. The architecture is the same as a Nissan Navara, and we've all said this for a long time. But that luxury aspect, the upmarket interior, all that type of stuff, buyers are seemingly moving on to that one. No one cares about the cloth interior anymore. People want leather, yeah, and upmarket materials are like that. So you have to wonder, is the P series the direct representation of what the future of this segment is going to be like in South Africa? Where you're going to spend your money? Honestly, that's up to you. What I like might not be what you like. And I know that's not an answer you want to hear, but give yourself time to drive these cars. Because, like I said, a lot of these cars are very evenly matched. They might do certain things slightly differently, but power, towing capacity, they're relatively similar. I think what I will say is, if you're looking for a Bakkie that is more rugged, more suited to the off-road and that kind of adventure lifestyle, dare I say, give the GWMP series a pass. Look more into your Rangers, your Hilux, your Nissan Navaras, and that type of stuff. However, if you're looking for a Bakkie just because of the space, the load capacity, and something that's just going to fulfill duties in the soft life, so to speak, on the road and stuff, then the GWMP series might just be the car for you. I don't know if you have a local center. I still need to check if we have a local center for servicing and all that type of stuff. But it's a car that seems to be ruffling a tad few feathers and confusing a few people because of its pricing and because of the stuff that it has on board. Just your perspective about it all. And that's it for me. Thank you so much for listening to this podcast. Thank you so much for tuning in weekly. I appreciate the support and I appreciate everyone here. As always, follow me on my social media at tabs_Meriohle, THAPZ_MEREOHLE. I'll try and be back next week with another episode. Thank you so much for listening. I hope you guys have a great week.